Engaging poster and cover pages can make or break your web stories, but how can you improve them? I'm very excited that we have an absolute design pro on Storytime today who can help us answer the question. Alicia Hallet-Chan, design director at Forbes, someone who basically builds web story posters on a weekly basis. Hi Alicia, thank you for making the time.
Hi Paul, it's really nice to meet you. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk about web stories today.
Can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, of course. So as you mentioned, I'm the design director at Forbes, where I oversee the look and feel of all editorial content and branding that appears on our website, on our social accounts, and in print. So my team works on a wide range of projects, from breaking news and social graphics to long-form storytelling to 360 design for annual tentpole Forbes packages like the 30 Under 30, the Forbes 400, and really exciting, this upcoming 50 over 50 list, which will be highlighting 50 diverse women over the age of 50 who've achieved success later in life. I joined the Forbes team in 2020, about a month after the pandemic started and we all had to work from home. And actually Google Web Stories was one of the first big projects I worked on, so it's been really great to see how that product has grown and evolved and the way we tell stories here at Forbes.
What characteristics do you look for in an image when you select it for the story poster?
Since readers will see the image before reading the text, I think it's really important that the cover image supports the headline and represents the content of a story at a very quick glance. So in order to do this, we kind of follow these three key guidelines that really help us make impactful cover images. So one, we really try to keep it simple. We aim to find an image that's visually arresting and that will really pique the reader's interest right away without being too busy. And this also helps to ensure that typography is really clean and very visible, and that helps to make sure that the headline is legible. So number two is we want to make a connection. So oftentimes we're looking to show a friendly face or even a famous face, which is a really helpful tool that can draw readers in. And then even illustrations of people tend to interest readers more than a still life will. So whether it's a local bartender walking us through a series of steps to make a cocktail, or perhaps a story on Lady Gaga's next Worth, showing their faces with some eye contact will really help the reader make that human connection and help more easily identify with the story. And then third, we really want to be authentic to your brand. So the variety of Forbes storytelling helps us resonate with so many different readers and communities, and because of that, it's really important that we stay on brand. And I mentioned Forbes photography earlier, but Forbes photography documents the highly accomplished as well as those who are on their way. So our images reflect that. They're of high quality, they reflect intelligence, and they really celebrate our subjects. So oftentimes we try to use these proprietary images from the Forbes collection as often as we can, but sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes we're using source imagery as well. However, when that is the case, and we are using that source imagery, it should really feel appropriate to the story and have a unique perspective.
How do you see the relation between the poster that serves more as a preview in places like Discover and the actual cover page? Are they always similar, or do you switch them up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in an effort to make a connection for the reader, we typically try to unify the poster and the cover images. So I really like this idea of what you see is what you get. And if the cover is animated, we'll select a moment or a still that best represents the story while being simple, quickly recognizable, and on brand.
We just covered a lot of theory, but can you share a few examples of your favorite covers or posters? And most importantly, what do you think makes them work?
Yeah, of course. So I have a few examples that showcase these three key guidelines that I mentioned above. So the first one is part of our Under 30 package, and that highlights the sports stars of the 2020 list. I really love this cover design because I think it checks all three boxes. So first of all, it's clean and simple with a bold photo of NBA star Ben Simmons, who plays for the Philadelphia 76ers. And it also has the logo and a very clear headline, so everything can be read just very quickly at a glance. And then next, Ben was photographed as part of our Under 30 package. So this photo is part of the Forbes collection. And he was photographed this year by fellow nominee Mamadi Doumbouya, who is a 23-year-old immigrant from Guinea who also appears on the list in the art and style group. So that was really exciting. Since Under 30 is one of Forbes' most notable lists, and one that many young entrepreneurs strive to be on. It's very on brand and it stays very authentic and true to the Forbes branding. So another successful cover design is the YouTube's highest paid stars. While these are not Forbes collection images, our designer took a really creative approach with photo and illustration and animation playing off the YouTube's interface. So there's clearly a human connection here, as this cover showcases 5 notable faces of the top paid YouTubers. I also want to point out that illustration can be just as impactful as photography. My final example goes into the Kinsley collection of African American art. This extraordinary collection contains more than 700 books, artifacts, and pieces of art that chronicle Black America from 1595 to the present. I love the energy that's captured by Ernie Barnes in his 2004 illustration, Study for a Drum Major. This figure stands out in his motion, and the white and green really stands out against the dark red background, which makes it very visually arresting. And hopefully, this is the type of cover image that will stop a reader as they're scrolling or going through the Google Discover feed. The narrative of the art collection is really important because Forbes is committed to using our megaphone to drive diversity, equity, and inclusion.
When you work on a web story for Forbes, how does that workflow usually look like? Do you usually only work on design aspects, or do you create the whole story? Do you source your assets yourself? And can you maybe walk us through that process?
Yeah, of course. So story selection is especially important right now where many people are still at home because of the pandemic. So at Forbes, we look for stories that readers can see themselves in, benefit from, or aspire to. And since we publish a web story every day, we needed to find a workflow that allowed us to have stories prepared a few weeks in advance. So the team works on stories in batches of 5, but we generally have like 2 or 3 weeks of web stories ready to go in advance. As far as the day-to-day team consists of 7 creatives, including myself as a creative lead, and then editorial is led by Michael Solomon, who heads up our lifestyle vertical. And he has a writer and an editor that help him out, and I have a designer and an animator that help me out. We also have a dedicated photo researcher, which is super helpful because they're the ones who source all of our imagery from the agency sites or directly from our subjects or the PR agencies. But oftentimes we also want to make sure that we're pulling from our own proprietary images that we call the Forbes collection. So those are images that we've shot throughout the years.
Wow, thank you so much for this great feedback and great insights. I mean, I really learned a lot today, and I hope our viewers also learned a lot from someone who is an actual industry professional. So thank you so much again for being with us today, Alicia.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really great to walk through our process and share some of our highlights of web stories. So I hope this was helpful.
Thank you. See you next time, everyone. Onwards.